Oh my gosh! Every time we clap in, it's like a Meisner exercise, right?
Yeah, I think that I just saw like a beep like show up on the Audacity, so I think we're square.
Rad. Good morrow, thespians. I'm Jen Ponton.
Hail and well met. I'm Lillian Bustle.
Hail and well met. And today we have with us a dear friend of mine and no stranger to the bard at all, Greg Jolley.
Hello.
Greg wears so many hats. He is a filmmaker. He made this gorgeous film last year or the year before that was just stunning. He's an actor, a writer, a photographer, a musician, a visual artist. Greg does it all. All of the things that leave you destitute on the street.
Yeah,
but,
you have to be good at all of them to make like this much money.
Right.
Yeah.
But Greg and I met doing children's theater. He's been a stage actor for 20 years, plays, musicals, tons and tons of Shakespeare, lots of children's theater, lots of dance, stunt work, stage fighting, accents, and singing. So the man of all hats, Greg, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. This is awesome.
Thanks for coming on. I feel like we have enough stories that we actually lived through together. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh, Greg has so many more. I know he's been in basements for a very long time. In all corners, certainly of New Jersey.
Yep.
Why does performance always winds up with us being subterranean? What is that about? Really? Can't I just perform on a roof sometime? Like, please.
Yeah, I feel like you will just wind up in a lot of like dingy spaces.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, yeah. I am no stranger.
Especially when you're early in the career. I found myself in a lot of like very kind of dusty, dingy places. Yeah.
I was just recently. I don't want to crap on this venue because it's a lovely venue. But have you ever noticed, like, when you're in New York City, there are some places that no matter how nice the actual places, the bathroom can possibly be so filthy that it will never actually be clean.
I did a reading for a guy that Jen and I both know, a director that we worked with. He wrote a book about Alexander the Great. And I did a reading at the seediest fucking bar I have ever been in my entire life down in the Village. I lived in the Village. I've been in really seedy joints all over this country. There were two like hamster tanks and I'm almost 100% sure they were using the cedar chips to like mask the smell of whatever horrible things have gone down in that basement. It was a green room that just smelled like piss and beer. No. And a couch that was just mold. Stained all over the place. And like our voices got shitty in the half hour we were waiting down there just to go. Like it was so dusty and gross and mildewy and moldy. It was disgusting. I wish I could remember the name of the bar. It was a weird reading to do for me personally, just because it was something that it was just very different for me, and the joint was just so. I was like, I'm gonna get murdered here.
Oh, no.
Like someone's gonna kill me, and I don't get scared anywhere. I'm a big dude. Like people don't scare me, but man, this joint, it was something else. So yeah, it's been a bunch of that.
Were you guys there just for the one night?
Yeah, so we had done a couple of readings in a few different places. We did another one that I think was towards the city, but not in the city. And it was only 4 actors. So we were traveling in kind of a small crew. And this guy who had written this, I guess really it's more of a libretto than a book, because it was intended to be a musical. We did one in the city. We did one, I want to say, in like Hoboken. We did one at the theater that this guy owns. And it was, it was like a very shock value-y kind of thing that was really meant to like goad people. So I was saying things that I'm like, man, I feel like people don't talk this way. You know what I mean? I have a filthy fucking mouth, but there was shit coming out of my mouth that I'm like, God damn, son. Like, hey, like it. I'm like, bro, like taper it back a notch, but whatever. It was an experience.
Recall, it was basically meant to emphasize how this like great actor of war and leader was super duper duper gay, and how gay could we possibly been?
Like, and gay to a degree that, like, I know a lot of gay people, and this isn't like my one gay friend. Like, I know, I've been in theater my whole life. Like, I have never met anybody like this, like the people that he was writing. I cringe to use the term. So I was playing Alexander's father during one course of this reading, and I have a line where he's about to go, like, rail some stable boy, and I literally say, "Make them watch how I fuck the boy cunt of a kid." And I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, all right, like, I don't shy away from a word, but fuck. I was like, bro. Damn, like, nail hammer, like, really hitting people over. And like I said, I think it was, he had been so incensed at the way that Alexander the Great had been portrayed throughout history, because Alexander was totally gay. A lot of people were, and openly so. Hephaestion, who was like his right-hand general, was totally his lover. And so this was like a very angry response to that kind of cultural phenomenon of, I guess I shouldn't call it phenomenon because it's been completely normalized to just like wipe gay people out of history. But this sort of cultural, that's a good word for it, straight washing. That Alexander the Great had been kind of straight washed throughout history, and everyone knew, but it was one of those like fringy things where it was like, yeah, we all know that this is what's really happening or really happened, but we don't really talk about it that way because war is so associated with masculinity in its most toxic fucking forms, and no one kind of wanted to acknowledge that, like, probably the greatest military leader in history was totally gay. So yeah, it was a weird experience.
This dear friend of ours really tripled, quadrupled, quintupled down on making up for lost time.
Raising awareness.
Oh man, did he ever. Holy shit, did he ever.
If you ever want to see it, Lillian, I'm almost certain that I have a spiral bound self-published
I have a copy of it.
100.
Yeah, let me tell you, we're all pretty fucking aware now.
Maybe we should do a staged reading of it.
He would love it. He would actually love it.
He would love it. He would legit love it.
So yeah, CD places. We've all seen
great.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So especially because we do this stuff, especially when we're young. And Lillian, Greg and I aren't both from Peaburg, but we are both from like the same little corner of Hicksville.
Yeah.
And so since we sort of bend more towards these seedy basements and dingy places when we're younger, like, what were the first very memorable instances of you being in, like, off Hoboken in the middle of the night on a Tuesday, and like, this is art and I'm an actor? And
so it's funny, actually, my initial, like, real hardcore professional experiences were not that. They were bigger. So I did an internship after my second year of college at a place called Flat Rock Playhouse. It's the State Theater in North Carolina. And these guys are the highest subscribed regional theater in America. They're incredibly successful. They use a slip stage, which is amazing. So you can literally build an entire house on a stage and then slip it off into the wings, and you have a completely empty stage. They do massive music. Yeah, they hire all, like, New York Broadway actors. Richard Kind was down there. I met him. Yeah, like Pat. Oh God, what's his name? Old actor Pat, whatever, from like Batman and stuff. He was down there. So they hire like real names. So that was my real foray into like understanding what a professional big scale theater is like. But you listen to me talk, you hear how I am, and you drop me into the middle of like real corn pone Appalachia down there. I guess it's more like Blue Ridge, but they're like slow mountain folk, and I don't mean slow like stupid. I mean slow like they just live like slow. Their pace is just like a dead. You might as well be going backwards. Very blue area in a very red state. Right. Which is my bread and butter, but at the same time, like a real culture shock. So sure. I can remember, people like almost immediately are like, man, you swear a lot. I'm like, whatever, like, you know what I mean? And it's a weird thing to say to somebody from New Jersey because that's just like par for the course. It's just how you live here.
Yeah, right.
You know, like fuck is as common as the.
Born
So-
with a fucking spoon in my mouth.
Yeah, you know, what I mean? Like it's as
do?
commonplace as any other word. Like that's just kind of I would almost call it like our dialect.
Absolutely.
Up on the Northeast Coast is to just speak that way.
1,000%.
So that kind of culture clash and like waiting behind people in a line. What a goddamn nightmare it is down there because they're taking their time. I don't wait in lines. That is plebe shit. I do not do it. That is fucking pedestrian. I am better than that. So exactly.
I
don't fucking
100%
wait in
with you.
lines, and I certainly don't wait in a slow one. So it was like a lot of that. But the experience at the theater was really amazing. What was awesome. So we worked across the street from the Carl Sandburg home. Carl Sandburg was this amazing American poet. He wrote the American Songbook, and he was just like this really famous author. He wrote this incredible this incredible biography of Abraham Lincoln that was told over like several volumes, and it's almost written in poetry. It's beautiful.
I saw a piece about this on CBS Sunday Morning.
He's
my fave.
CBS Sunday Morning.
absolute genius writer, and he died a very long time ago, but his home and his estate is still maintained. It's right across the street from the theater. So it's like a 300-acre goat farm. So they sell all these like great like goat cheese and goat chocolate, and I had goat fudge for the first time down there. But what's even better is psilocybin cubensis mushrooms grow in the goat shit that's all over the place. And because it's such it's so humid in the mountains up there. We worked at the Carl Sandburg house, so we would perform his stuff for kids who would like come from like summer camps and shit, and we would perform like the American Songbook for them, and we did a Lincoln show for like older kids once the fall season hit, and that was part of the job of the apprentices and interns was to do these shows. And so we would go over there and do that shit, and then on the way back, I just kind of like send everybody ahead of me and bring a pillowcase and just load it with psilocybin cubensis mushrooms, and that's kind of how I like survived down there, was selling these things off around Hendersonville, and the people who worked there would not love me, like not love to hear about this,
Greg,
but like I was
New
eating
Jersey
mushrooms
asshole
all the
shows
time,
up
and like
talking,
selling
you're
off
like,
just. Like, these dried psilocybin mushrooms to like people all over Hendersonville. I made in one night, there was a music festival in Hendersonville, which is the town where this theater is. There was this great music festival. It was a bluegrass festival, and I made probably like $1,500 in a night just doling out these
That's
mushrooms.
amazing.
Yeah, and it was really
Was there
great.
any learning curve to realizing that they were fun shrooms and not toxic shrooms?
I know what to look for because I know what they look like, and I know how to cure them the right way. So, yeah, I mean, there was a learning curve prior to me picking those. Because if I just picked them and started eating them and they weren't what we thought they were, it would not have gone. We wouldn't be having this conversation. I would just be dead and rotting up on, some Blue Ridge mountain somewhere. But yeah, like it's funny, like I never did anything like during a show there. It wasn't until like after I left there, and I don't know, like all the professionalism I had learned from that place just like wore off for a little while in my 20s. So it was kind of an odd thing of going from this like 700 seat, massive, tons of money dumped into a theater as like my first kind of hardcore experience of professional theater to these like 200 seat, like dingy, or even like a 40 seat black box on like the 5th floor where there's like apartments above you.
Oh God!
Are you talking about Wow Cafe Theater? That is real.
It's like going from like a Buick to a Lamborghini, and then you have to go back to a Buick.
God.
Oh, yeah, Greg, when I moved up to New York, I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to be so professional. It's going to be so exciting. And like people are going to get places on time. And like we're going to have such really great get into the work. And then I got here and I was like, oh no.
No, it's
everyone's a mess and everything's dark and dirty.
and not to, I don't ever want to disparage artists from pursuing what they want to pursue. There is so much bad fucking theater in New York. So much bad theater.
So much well-funded bad theater.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's the film community.
That's the worst part.
Like all the work that I've done in film, I either crowdsourced or I paid for it, or both. And I'm done with crowdsourcing. I can't extort my family and friends for any more money. It's humiliating. It's like panhandling without playing a song for them. It's awful. Not to disparage panhandlers because they actually provide you a product. For me,
we really need an app for like artists and benefactors.
Yeah, that's like, so it's funny. I've talked to a few people in the New Jersey film scene who tend to get bigger budgets. And I remember I had somebody come on to a film set for one of my films. And they were talking, well, I usually work in like $40,000, $50,000 budgets. And my film Been a While, which is my most personal and favorite of the projects that I've made.
Beautiful.
Cost $2,700. And it was made on a skeleton crew and with a cast of amazing actors. And I remember this person like making that comment. And then I hit them up later and I was like, hey, so like how are you, just to pick their brain, like how are you getting this funding? Like where are you acquiring this? And it was like, oh, my mom has like a rich friend. And I'm like, well, fuck you. Like don't fucking act like you have some massive connection or, you're like amazing at like finding funding. You have a dude who's just got money to burn that wants an IMDb credit, and good for you. I'm not disparaging you finding that. Fucking awesome if you have an angel investor like that, but stop acting like I'm not doing the work. You know what I mean? Like, don't look down on my project just because I don't have, loaded friends.
Right. Right. Yeah. If anyone in tech out there wants to make a dating app, a matchmaking app for benefactors and artists, that's what we really all need, because we don't all have someone who has a rich friend who just wants to like,
and you know what? Make it a dating app too. I'll take somebody out to dinner if they're going to throw me like a $5,000 check. Look, man, I'm trying to make it in this business.
That's right. Be a sugar filmmaker. There
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. I wish there was like, so I have a friend who is a prostitute and a sex worker. Let's call it a sex worker because that's what it is.
That's what we say.
Sorry about that. And she is a financial dominatrix. I want that job. Oh, this girl doesn't have to fuck anybody. She doesn't have to touch anyone. She just sits there and tells men how fucking wormy they are. And she's like, you're a piece of shit. Give me $1,000. And they're like, yes, ma'am. They just hand it over. Like,
wow.
Why can't I have that job? And the reason I can't have that job is because I guess my sex has been doing that to the other sex since the beginning of time. So there's no fetish for it. It's just reality, and that sucks. So I guess
I bet guys would be very into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I could do it to like other dudes, but I don't. There's just nothing to relate for that for me. You know what I mean? And I can't like yell at women that way because that's just creepy and weird. So I'm just shit out of luck.
I think Findom is almost exclusively women to men.
Women about men.
I mean, it has to, and I can't even imagine, even if there are women out there who have that fetish of like getting shit on and handing their money over. I would imagine it's 99.9% exclusively to other women.
Oh yeah, I would absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like I don't think. I don't know, man. Especially in 2021.
There's nothing novel about
like being a dude yelling at a woman and taking her money. Right. That's just a pimp. Like that really just sounds like a pimp to me.
No, thank you, Uncle Sam.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That just sounds like government. I don't want to do that. I wish. Funding for films like a tricky thing, and
would be real good.
It's all come out of my pocket so far, and
the
pockets of those who I've guilted into helping me achieve my dream.
So before we get too far away from the topic of mushrooms,
yes,
in your notes, you had hinted about something involving Winnie the Pooh.
Oh man, yeah. So I was doing a professional children's theater production of Winnie the Pooh, and these shows were at like 9:00 in the morning on weekdays, and on weekends it was like 10 a.m. and sometimes it was 2 show days where it was like 10 and 1. And so not only are you doing this show for like screaming children who, I mean, let's be real, you're just like shapes and noise to them. Like they're not, if you get a kid that's like over 4 or 5, they might identify you as like that thing. But Otherwise, you're just like, I'm playing Eeyore and Tigger, and I'm just big gray and orange shapes that just yells things and flashing lights. And so we were doing this production. I was probably about like 22 at the time. I was pretty young. And I was in a very big psychedelics phase at the time. So I was doing a lot of acid and a lot of mushrooms and mescaline and peyote and all the things that you do. And I had spent the night before, like, taking heroic doses of mushrooms, like probably like 5-6 dried grams of like hard psilocybin cubensis mushrooms, and drinking Robitussin. Because so mushrooms back when, so back then mushrooms were actually cheaper than weed. I've smoked weed most of my life, but you know, you go through your 20s, you got no money, and weed was expensive back then because it's not like it is now. And so I had been able to procure some psilocybin mushrooms, and we had like no money, and our connects weren't around to even like front us anything. So we were like, well, we want something that's going to like really get us fucked up, but we want something that'll also like bring it down a little bit. So we were like, well, we could like throw Robitussin in there because that like kind of knocks you out. And so when we need to go to sleep. So we went to CVS, and this is like pre-meth days. Like you didn't have to fucking sign a thing to get Sudafed back then. It was just, you know, you just got this medicine, and so we went and bought like 8 bottles of Robitussin. So I spent all night tripping face on mushrooms. And then probably about like 4 a.m, I'm like, I got a show tomorrow. So I'm like pounding bottles of, so I drank like a bottle and a half of Robitussin. So Robitussin, for anyone who's never robo-tripped, there you get this thing called the itches. So you get like an itch in one place, and if you touch it, you just got to let it go and just deal with the itch for like 30 seconds and it'll go away. But if you scratch it, you're done. That's the rest of your day is like this.
Oh my
and you
God,
just feel
that
like you're
sounds
itchy. Yeah, because it just like
terrifying.
fucks up your nerves and shit. So
No.
so I didn't get to sleep. So I'm like half in the bag on a bunch of mushrooms that are like starting to get their way out of my system. I got Robitussin that's just in the middle of my system. And then I had like 1 hit of acid on top of that. It was just kind of like milling around. Like it wasn't like really hitting hard, but it definitely wasn't not there.
Oh my God.
So I had to go do the show that morning. So my friends are dropping me off, and they're all like pounding breakfast sandwiches, and I can't eat anything because I'm like, I'm dying. Like I have no appetite. Like I'm just tripping face. I'm sweating like crazy. And I'm like trying to put my makeup on. You know, I'm wearing like face paint makeup because it's, you know, I'm playing Eeyore and Tigger. Like I have to, you know, do some things to. So like there's shit like running all over my face. I'm trying to like powder it up and clean it up. And people are talking to me, and I'm grunting at them. Like I just have nothing to say. And as soon as I got the makeup on, I'm like outside just chain smoking cigarettes because I'm like I like can't wrap my head around what I have to do. So
all I can think of is those Ben Affleck memes.
It was like that, but like imagine his pupils are the size of like saucers. Like that's what I look like, and just sweating profusely and like really wide-eyed. And so I go out to do the show, and I'm talking like in a really weird pitch. Like, I'm Eeyore, and so I'm supposed, thanks for noticing me. I'm like, thanks for noticing me, Pooh! Like, I'm, like, freaking out. And, like, kids are, like, looking at me weird. And maybe they weren't. Maybe they were looking at me normal, but I was weird, and so I thought they were weird.
Sure.
And they're just, like, sweating, and there's lights, like, blasting in my face.
Oh,
and
God.
At one point, in the middle of a costume change, I was like throwing up into a bucket of sawdust backstage, like that I had literally made one of our tech guys like dump a bunch of the sawdust from the workbench into a bucket. I'm going to be throwing up today.
Just
And
FYI.
then, so the worst part of it is that at the end of the show, you have to meet and greet with these kids. So you go down into the lobby, and the kids like want to hug you and take a picture with you, or you have to put them on your lap. And I can't tell you how many kids I almost dropped. Like parents were literally handing me their kids, and I'm like, like I couldn't like close my hands around them and like hold them up. So I'm like holding kids by one arm, and they're like taking their picture like this, and just like sweating on these kids. Like they're like, "Mommy, he's like sticky," and I'm like, "Dude, get the fuck off of me! Like, don't touch me!" Like, and these kids are like touching my face, and I am bugging the fuck out, complete meltdown mode. Like I'm like, there's. Yeah, it's like, you know, they say like you choose your own hell, right? If you're a bad person, you die and you go to hell. Like the hell is the worst thing you can. It's like, you know, like when they summon the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's like that philosophy. That's my hell. Is like Robitussin trip itches in a hot
Covered in
fur
children.
costume with 100 little kids yelling and screaming and touching me with their sticky hands. I don't know why children always have sticky hands, but their hands are always sticky. And I'm pretty sure it's because they're putting them in their mouth all the time, which is fucking foul.
And their mouths and snacks.
Yeah, it's gross. And yeah, so that was a really, really rough experience. I don't know how I got through the show. I had like 4 songs to sing. I don't know how I got through any of them. And yeah, I was like throwing up backstage. It was just really, really bad. And then I went home and slept for like, I don't know, like a day and a half. I don't think I emerged.
God.
The show must go on.
Yeah, it sure must. And this is a theater that doesn't cast understudies. So you are it. And if you're sick, you're performing sick. If your leg fell off, you're performing one-legged. Like they don't care. You work. That was a rough one. Yeah. Yeah, recommendation to all the people who are getting into theater: don't eat a bunch of mushrooms and drink a bunch of Robitussin. I don't even know if people drink Robitussin anymore. I feel like
don't
the
think
kids
they can
now
get
are all
hold of
eating
it.
Molly and shit. Like they're all on MDMA.
What do they do? Oh, it's the dumb shit like Tide Pods.
Yeah,
They
I
don't do
know
that
what
to get
that's-
high, Jen.
Yeah, I think that was just a gag. I don't know what kids are.
really?
You know, all the kids are like hitting the
have no
vape
idea.
now, and like the vape's cool, I guess. But like I don't know, I prefer old school weed. Like I just like the old flower.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, and it was so interesting. I got my my medical card in 2018 because I have some neck pain, and I just wanted fucking weed. Whatever, I'm not going to justify it. I just wanted to smoke weed and not feel.
Also,
like a
we
criminal.
live in Jersey. So
Yeah, exactly. So fucking whatever. And the different ways of ingesting THC that were handed to me it was surreal. Talking to a person wearing a lab coat with like 9 face piercings and like the half shaved like Skrillex haircut.
Yep.
She was cool as hell. She was great, but she was like
Rad.
25 and she's like, "So do you know about weed?" And I'm like, "I have been smoking weed since before you were born. I know all about weed." And she's like, "Well, you can do that." And I'm like, "I guess I
Here's a
don't know anything
brochure.
about weed because you just told me 9 things I've never seen before."
Oh, God.
Yeah, so
Wow.
that was
So
doing Winnie the Pooh for
Amazing.
200 children, tripping my face off.
And then you had to do a ton of Shakespeare in front of children too. How'd that shit go?
Yeah, so that's a mixed bag. Because every once in a
Really?
while,
Because kids usually love Shakespeare.
there was always like 3 or 4 things that were constant. One douchey 16-year-old would ask Juliet for her number whenever we did Romeo and Juliet. One fucking kid when this was like a Q&A thing. It was an educational theater. It was professional, but it was like high schools and sometimes like, first year college students and then sometimes like middle schoolers, depending on the show and where we were in the season. So you'd get, one kid would always ask for Juliet's phone number, which is, whatever. And then you would always get like the one like huckster who would just fuck around during the course of the entire show. And these kids, like, I would aim for, and the director would kind of put them in noticeable areas, like down in the front or in the aisles, so that they'd be easy to remove. He had a really good eye for knowing, like, which kids were going to be pricks.
Oh, yeah.
So every once in a while, like, a lot of our entrances came from the house onto the stage. So every once in a while, like, if I knew a kid was, like, fucking around through the show, I'd, like, throw him a little elbow or something. Just give him, like, a little smack in the head or something when I walk past, just to be like, this isn't TV. I can see you. I had one group come on April Fool's Day to this theater. This theater has a lot of flaws, but it's my home. It's a place that I've done a lot of professional work, and I love this place. It's like my church. And my church run by the most flamboyant man. It would kill the church to know that I call it this my
Absolutely.
church.
Once
By the
upon
most
a time, it
perverted,
was a church.
flamboyantly gay man I've ever met in my life. We had an April Fool's performance, or an April 1st performance, and it's April Fool's Day. Some kid dropped a stink bomb in the theater, and it was horrific. I mean, the smell was fucking atrocious.
No.
And
Can I
during the
ask,
course,
Greg, what do they smell like?
what do they smell like?
Yeah.
It's like it's basically my understanding is like a sulfur. So it smells like bad eggs. Like if you've like over boiled an egg and then let it
Right.
sit out on the counter for like a month.
fucking
Like that's what it
dreadful.
smells, and it doesn't go away. Like you You can open it just fucking hangs. And because it's a liquid, these smoke bombs are like, it's a little glass thing and you smash it on the ground. So it's a liquid. So if you grind that into a carpet, it's not going away for hours.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So it's nothing permanent, but it'll go the whole show. So these kids did that. And then at another point, one of our actors was monologuing and someone like threw like a couple of nickels at him, which is the weirdest kind of heckle. Like I've never seen someone throw nickels. Like that felt very medieval to me. Like that's what you do to like the court jester, is you like throw a little thing of, a little coin purse at him or something that's both meant to like pay him for his work but also show your contempt. Like, you fucking clown. Here's your stupid vague amount of money that I'm throwing at you. So that's what it was like. They were like throwing nickels at this guy. And one of them actually hit him. Like it didn't hurt him, but like it hit him like on the shoulder, and he was like, "What the fuck?" So when we went to do the Q&A afterwards, I went out and I like lambasted these kids for like 10 minutes, and I was like, "You punks, you little fucking nobodies." I was like, just because most of you are gonna have a job with your name on your shirt for the rest of your life, that doesn't mean you get to ruin the show for everybody, you bunch of car wash attendants. Like verbatim saying shit like that to these kids. And the teachers fucking knew. They knew that they weren't doing their jobs. And so they just kind of let me have at it with these little shits.
That's amazing.
Yeah, totally worth it. It was that's like a bad story, but a total
protect you.
Yeah, because it's like how often have you been in a shitty, seen a shitty audience like that you've either been in or you've been on stage for a shitty audience and you just wanted to fucking hand it to them. Mm-hmm. And I got to hand it to them. I got to fucking take that pie of shit and stuff it right in their little
God, that's so beautiful.
dickhead 14-year-old faces. Yeah, and it's even better when it's kids, because when you have like really shitty, trashy kids and they're like being assholes, there's nothing better than cutting the lack of humility out of a child.
Oh yeah,
really shitty.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
I was doing the very first show that I did in New York, in a very small black box theater, where basically I was delivering a monologue about how I was looking through like my parents' medicine cabinet to see if I could find something to kill myself with. And it winds up to be a funny monologue, but at the very beginning, it is not. And the friends of one of the other leads in this show were shit-faced drunk. And they were basically like 2 feet. Their knees were 2 feet from my knees as I'm delivering this. And I got through it. But like it got to the point where I just stared them down because they were like laughing, and then they were like, "Oh, she's mad at us," and I was just like, "I have to get through this scene whether or not you're." Ugh.
But yeah, it was nice to like rip into those kids.
Man, and then every other adult just sort of silently gave you tacit permission.
100%. Every teacher was like, I could see it in their eyes, like, "Thank you." Thank you for saying what I will get sued by parents if I say.
And even the director, like, as much as I know that he will absolutely stand up for children all the time, for him to be like, "No, Greg."
No, he just, he didn't say a word. In fact, he introduced me because I told him, I was like, "I'm going to say something." And he was like, "Okay." He was like, "Greg Jolley, everybody." And I was like, "You fucking shithead monsters." Like, yeah.
Remember my name, motherfucker.
Yeah. I was like, "You'll not soon forget this man in tights who just ruined your day, you little assholes. You thought you were getting just a free day out of school? I got news for you. Here's a smack in the face with reality, you little dicks."
Oh my God. So, but this was not the performance where you took a sword to the face.
No, so I was doing a production of Macbeth, and I at the time I was playing Macduff, and this was really funny. So I was playing, and there's actually another great thing to this too. So I was doing 2 gigs at the same time at this theater. One was a children's gig, and one was a Shakespeare gig. The children's gig was The Little Mermaid, and I was playing Ursula the Sea Witch.
Yes,
and I crushed that shit.
Yes.
Full drag. It was amazing.
Oh my God.
So I played Ursula the Sea Witch, and then at the same time I was playing Macduff in Macbeth. And so I had to have a beard throughout the course of Macbeth, and I'm not gluing a beard on every day. So I had grown my beard out, but I also had to play Ursula. So we used to call her like the post-menopausal Ursula, who just had like this like, you know, explosion of hair. And we were doing a scene, and when I wasn't on stage playing Macduff, and this was the funny part, I was also playing an assassin because I'm proficient in sword fighting. So I actually, as the assassin, killed my own family in the play. But it was right after Banquo's death, and the guy who was playing Macbeth, he has a scene where, you know, we failed to kill Banquo's son Fleance, and he goes to grab me, and he would come up and like kind of get my shirt and like push me up against the wall, and my sword was in its hilt, and in its frog, and he caught the hilt of the sword in his finger and took it up when he went to go like that. And the pommel, God. This is for those who don't know, a pommel on a sword is a steel ball on the end of the handle of your blade. So like whenever you're watching them, you know, some like Sword and Sandals epic or something, it's that thing that's on the end of the blade that's meant to like, you know, provide a stopping point for your grip and that help balance out the weight. So this steel ball hit me right in the nose. And immediately, like, just, like a river, like, just coming out of me. And
oh, no.
I'm, like, bleeding. And so I'm wearing a mask, right? Because they can't see my face. So all you can see is, like, eye holes and a mouth. And you just see this, like, spreading across my face like a Rorschach test of my own blood. I look like Rorschach from The Watchmen. Like, it was just, like, this, like, slow-moving, like, color across my face on this gray mask. And then, like, I'm trying to say lines because, you know, the show has to go on. But I'm, like, sputtering through blood that's, like, running out of the mouth hole. So the audience just sees, like, blood, like, falling down, but you can't really see where it's coming from.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I've caught a lot of sword injuries. I have scars, like, all over me from inexperienced fighters or even experienced fighters. I mean, shit happens. You know, I've left a lot of blood on the boards before.
Oh, man.
I did one show where a kid got stabbed through the hand. Our Romeo went to kill Tybalt, and he had this dagger, and it's a blunt dagger, and a heavy steel one too. I mean, these are Starfires, so these are like really kind of old school heavy blades. They're just not sharp, which makes it even worse when you get stabbed with it.
Sure.
So this kid who was playing
extra
Tybalt
drag.
wanted to do this, and the guy playing Romeo just aimed wrong and hit him right in the hand. He didn't go through the hand. He like hit it and it bounced off. And then Tybalt like has to pretend he's dead. So he's just laying on the ground, but like in total shock because his hand is just pouring blood out. So when you look at the body, you just see like the shaking, like Tybalt. And we're all like, I was playing Lord Capulet for this performance. And I'm like, oh man, oh my son, my friend Tybalt, oh shit. Like, and I'm like watching this kid like panicking, like his eyes are wide and he's like sweating like crazy, his hands bleeding all over the place. Yeah, we're all trying to keep it cool, but the audience knows like we are not keeping it cool.
It's gone terribly
I would
wrong.
say Romeo and Juliet is probably my least favorite show I've ever done, and I've probably done it the most. I have, between playing Tybalt and Lord Capulet, I've done like probably over 300 performances. And you get into a certain thing. I think it's my least favorite show, but it's the one I've had the most fun in, because at some point, like, it just didn't care anymore. So you start dropping lines from other shows into it, or just finding a way to make it fun, or to like make each other. That became like a running gag, was like, can we make each other laugh? Like, how can we get some, like, how can we reach the apex of non-professionalism by trying to fuck up our other actors and make them look bad? Because our director would watch the first show, and we would do a run of like 40 of these. He'd watch the first one and then bounce. Like, he would never pay attention. He'd go home during the performance.
Oh my God.
You know, he didn't give a shit. So it would just be us. So we're like dropping in lines from like Coen Brothers movies, or There Will Be Blood, just to like see. So my guy who we met doing Romeo and Juliet is my best friend now. He played Paris, and I was playing Tybalt in this production, and I was doubling as Paris's like little servant guy. So there's a scene between the two of them before Paris gets to Juliet's tomb and eventually fights Romeo and dies, where he has this little bit with this like unnamed servant that's somehow imbued with like a lot of meaning to Paris. He's like, oh, this, you know, my friend. I'm like, no one's ever fucking heard of this guy. So we gave him some name. I don't even remember what it was. And, it was we called him Del Jefton, and the reason, and I'll make this quick, but I'd gotten this weird phone call the day before, and someone was like, "Is Del Jefton there?" And I'm like, "I don't know who you are, but they kept saying the name Del Jefton, and I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? So it became this character's name. And so we were like, his name's Del Jefton, the torch kid. So at one point, I'm about to run away, and because he's gonna send me off to hide or something, and he turns to me and he puts his hand on my cheek, and he looks me dead in the eye, and he goes, "Sweet Del Jefton, I'll miss you most of all." Like, to the audience, like this was an audible line. And and the thing was, I had been shit talking him so much. I'm like, I'm gonna make you fucking break. I'm gonna do all kinds of shit to you. And he totally hit me with a preemptive strike. And all I could do, I couldn't even get my line. I had a line after that, and I couldn't even get it out. I just closed my eyes, and it was the worst 45 seconds of dead air on a stage that I've ever been a part of. We just looked at each other, and he could see how angry because I was like, "Fuck you." But I couldn't get it together. So I just stared at him and then slowly went and just the slowest, most awkward walk off of a stage. I just couldn't get my head together to finish out this scene. Yeah, he got me. He got me real good. That was
so good.
Oh God, that's so beautiful.
Oh my God. We did with this company, just thinking of the structure of how children's shows would go, and then it would be first thing in the morning and just a sea of very, very, very small children. This director decided to license a version of Blue's Clues Live.
I was going to bring this up.
Yes. Yes, good, because I'm wondering what I'm forgetting. So Blue's Clues Live was the first show that I did with Greg and at this theater. And
holy shit, it was. Wow.
Yeah. It was 5 or 6 actors. Yeah. Most of us playing an assortment of the animated characters that populate Steve's house. And then one girl who was playing Blue and one guy who played Steve. And the songs we had to memorize, all of the props were basically holding big placards of the way the animation looked on the show.
It was foam board cutouts of Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper, I think.
Right. And the mailbox.
The mailbox. And we did one song that was all about the planets, where we're all holding a first grade project of planets, those big styrofoam balls. And we're running around in circles with them. I remember but in between that we would play ourselves. We had our own, we kept our own name. Right. So it was hey Jen, hey Matt, except Matt was Steve. And just because of how inane this all is, and and the girl playing Blue, so she had a blue head but no blue face. It was her face painted blue, so it was a dog without a nose. If you look on profile, it's just a flat face. Very fucking weird. And I remember my goal throughout the course of the show was to be the one adult.
Yes.
The one grown up who was just over all of it. And so anytime the Steve guy would be "Hey Greg, let's draw this," and I'm like, "Yeah, all right, Steve, let's draw it, Steve." I just needed one person for the parents to relate to, because I could see all of them not hanging. Perfect. So I used to fuck with Matt a lot, and just be really kind of just cynical with him, and just kind of sarcastic, and that was we had to make that show fun because it made no goddamn sense.
It made no sense. Talk about small children only seeing shapes and hearing sounds. This show was absolutely made for nonverbal, very young
and it
children.
was I think the goal of the show was to find the most magical place. And in the end, it was home. And I remember Steve turning to me and being like, "Wow, Greg, we solved it. The most magical place is home." And I'm like, "Yeah, Steve, we've been here for an hour." It all took place in his fucking stupid drawn house anyway.
Oh, it was so,
that's ridiculous.
Exactly what it was. God, that show was insane. We had a great time, and the best part was that because Greg was this perfect, like, dichotomy, because Matt was such a good Steve.
He was great.
Like, he was
so
made to
animate.
do
Kids
that.
loved him. Yeah, he was fantastic.
Kids loved him.
Yeah.
And so he was just so bouncy and friendly and engaging, and he'd be like, right, Greg? And then Greg would, like, shoot some ire his way, and then Matt would get really uncomfortable and be like, great, thanks, Greg.
Yeah. It was a very good like straight man, banana man, like very classic
so
Abbott-y,
great.
Costello-y kind of routine between the two of us. Of just, like,
Man.
like he was very much the over the top, like, yeah, and he'd turn to me and I'd be like, fuck you, and he'd be like, okay, you know, it was a very like surrealish kind of dynamic that we had. It was a lot of fun. Actually, I remember I did Wizard of Oz with Jen and with her husband, with Andrew.
Oh!
And Andrew was our Tin Man, and he said something once that like made me fall out of my fucking chair.
I could never be on stage with Andrew.
Andrew's
would
amazing.
never.
He's one of the best improvisers I've ever met.
Oh, I'm sure
Like,
he's
the guy
amazing,
is
but like
so quick.
But I feel like fucking with people is in his blood. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like I
yes.
can't even.
But he does it in like, it's weird because Andrew's like, he's very dangerous to be on stage with because he will get you to break. But as a human, he's like harmless. He's the nicest person, like the sweetest, most big-hearted guy in the world. But he will fuck with you. And I remember him saying, like,
Oh,
he
and
said,
Greg was
like,
his favorite person to fuck with.
yeah.
I can see that.
He was like, one of these kids is gonna come up to me one day and be like, "Mommy, that metal man tastes like pennies," and I don't know why, but my God, that sent me. That floored me. This
I'm so
metal
sorry.
man tastes like pennies. He was Andrew's a total class. I love Andrew. I miss him.
Yeah.
I miss working with him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, we shared a lot of good. There was a lot of fun on those. On some of
They
those shows.
were
They're-
a blast.
They're just like, we're getting paid to do the most low stakes job in the world.
Oh yeah.
Like, you really can't complain about that.
Right.
Yeah.
I did a production of Pinocchio actually with my buddy, and this is like with my friend who did the thing in the Shakespeare show. He was playing Jiminy Cricket, and at one point Pinocchio gets thrown in a cage by Giovanni, the racist Italian carnival guy, whatever his name is.
The child butcher.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the like the kid rapist that kidnaps this puppet and throws him in a cage. It's a very surreal story.
Mm-hmm.
And
So creepy.
my buddy is playing Jiminy Cricket with these big. He looks like Elton John when he's doing the Pinball Wizard. Like, he has these giant glasses on. It's like the most thrown together costume in the world. And he looks out at the audience. He looks at Pinocchio, and he goes, and he was like, "Oh, Pinocchio was caught by blah blah blah," and now he goes, despite all his rage, he's still just a rat in a cage. And one guy in the back of the house with, God, he was wearing, I want to say it's like an Allman Brothers t-shirt. It was just so obvious that this guy was like a music dude and a pothead. Like, when he came in, we all saw it on him. This one dude in the back just goes, "Tat!" like a really loud single laugh. Despite all his rage, he's still just a rat in a cage. "Tat!" And all of us, like, it like shut down the show for like 30 seconds. And again, we could get away with this shit because our director just stopped watching performances after the first one. So it just became this rotating game of like, what can we do to fuck with each other? Yeah, it was. And in that show, actually, I play the guy who turns everybody into donkeys. And this show is like this really happy-go-lucky, cutesy show. So I was playing the fox, Jay Worthington Foulfellow, which was a lot of fun. And then I played the horrific donkey guy who like steals children on this island and plies them with booze, which is what the original story is, and then turns them into donkeys. And so our director decided...
And to what end? That never made sense to me.
Turn them into slave labor, I think. That's the only thing that makes sense, unless it's even creepier. Like,
Oh no!
Yeah.
like where it gets really
Down to
really
Tijuana with you
yeah,
kids.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a thing that you pay like 9 pesos to see. You know what I'm talking about. It's not cool. So
It's at the box, Lillian.
he decided to, like, for just this one scene, to just do this harsh red lighting. And he would say to me, he's like, "Be as big as you can when you do this." So I would come out and I'd be like, This is what happens to little boys and little girls who play hooky from school. And like in this harsh red hellfire light. And every time you'd think it would be like kids screaming. As soon as the scene was over, it was silent and you would just hear sniffles. You would hear these little 5-year-old sniffles and these little, like it was so scary that they couldn't even scream cry. They were just horrified, soul-crushed, whimpering to their mothers like, just like these little cries. And they never recovered.
Fuck.
Like when we would come out for the curtain call, they're like really shitty clapping and just terrified of us.
Yay! Yeah. Good. That makes the meet and greet quicker.
Absolutely, they were out quick. I was done with that in 10 minutes.
No sticky hands in your lap this time.
Nope. No one wants to hug the creepy donkey guy.
Who wants to be a donkey, little boy?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Man, he knew what he was doing. Greg, go to your nth degree.
Yeah. He was like, I do it big, and he's like, you can do bigger. I'm like, really? I can do bigger? It's like, yeah, go for it. Do what you want to do. I'm like, all right, man, fucking A, you want them scared, I'll scare them.
Apparate in their rooms and come out from under the bed and swipe them.
And I have no limits when it comes to that shit.
This is now immersive theater, so.
Oh.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure, like, the trauma from that show is sitting with a couple of those children in their teenage years now.
Absolutely. For a child, that is the equivalent of like going to England and seeing The Woman in Black.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that there's kids now who are watching Shrek, and every time Donkey's on screen, they start to sweat, and they don't know why. Their teeth start chattering, or their neck like tenses up, and they don't know why it's happening, but it's happening. And it's because the seed of me in a fucking red wash is
wow.
You have left your mark.
Greg, that's just yep, so good. Oh fuck, I could talk to you about this forever.
I just want to mention before we go to the wrap up, when I accidentally had audio, which Jen, you can edit out if you want, but like from 2011, there is a Moth, the storytelling podcast where Steve talks about getting laid because of his fame, and it is a delight, and I will make sure that you get it. But if you want to just find it on YouTube, The Moth presents Steve Burns' Famishness.
So
good. You know what? I bet he pulled a lot of lonely mom action. I know. I'll tell you what, the Wiggles fucking clean up. There is something to working in that space.
Yeah, I don't understand. I find it all very sinister, if I may be honest. But like, people are into that.
Dude, I've had more than one mom slide their hand up the furry arm of my Cowardly Lion costume. I'm not kidding. It's happening.
I remember you.
Yeah, I've had moms like they're like, oh, here, take a picture with the lion, and like shoving their kid into me when the kid clearly doesn't want to go near me. And the mother's like sidling up and like sliding her arm around the back of my neck under my wig to my neck. And I'm like, don't fucking do that. Like, I'm not meat, man. Come on.
Ma'am, you don't know where this costume is.
I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. If you're into it, cool. But like, I am fucking not.
You better be throwing some nickels. Tip a bit.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Okay, hooray.
One last question, because I know you must have something glorious. What is the weirdest, craziest thing you've ever gone to see performance-wise? Maybe not even like the most bizarre thing, but it could also be something that you thought was going to be good and was absolutely terrible.
I saw a production of at like a really small theater. It was somebody's play. Like, it wasn't a well-known play. It was like some friend of mine, where a guy fucked another guy with a handful of butter as the lube, and it was so much more graphic than I ever needed it to be.
Wow.
And it went past shock value. I'm all about shock value. I am a big fan of snapping your audience into a moment and being like, you are fucking here right now. Now is the present and you're in it. And I love the idea of keeping your audience in the moment you're in and the one you just left. And that's where they live.
Yes.
But this was like, And I felt like, you know, that Hitchcock zoom where it's like it like zooms in on you and the hallway gets really long. Like that's what it felt like for me. I was maybe 25 when I saw this. And I had just never seen theater like that. And to be honest, it was inspirational in a way that I was like, holy shit, like you can do anything with theater. But at the same time, I was like, Jesus Christ, you can do anything in theater. Like,
do anything.
You know, like it had a real like kind of split for me. That was really, really strange thing. And I've seen like plenty of really just atrociously bad theater.
Sure.
Like just stuff that I'm like, what am I fucking doing here? And what are any of you doing here? Like, how are you as dumb as me for coming to this thing? And in some big places too. I was in a production of, and I hope he doesn't watch this because he's gonna know who he is as soon as he sees it. If he sees it, I did a production of Vampire Macbeth that was one of the worst things I've ever been in my entire life.
Oh no!
That had like the witches like dancing to Evanescence songs and shit. It was really like over the top terrible.
No.
And like conceptually, if you're going to do a Shakespeare play that's vampires, Macbeth is a very good one to do because of the way
I can see that.
The corruption kind of goes down the chain. You have this like if the witches bite Macbeth and then Macbeth bites his wife and then they kill Duncan. Like it's just a very bloody play that you can see. You can track how different people become a vampire throughout the play that makes sense.
Nice.
None of that fucking thought was put into this production.
Oh, no.
And it was just super cheesy. And like nobody came to see it in this massive theater. We were at it was up in Bloomfield. So it was a Bloomfield University theater. I can't remember the name, or Bloomfield College, whatever it is. I can't remember the name of the theater. But it's a very big, very nice theater. And you never notice how many people don't come to your show like you do in a big theater where there's like 7 fucking people and like this music's blasting and there's so little people that it's echoing off of the back of the house.
Oh no.
So you're just hearing your own terrible dialogue being echoed back to you and like people are looking at their phones. Like it was just really, really bad. It's interesting that there's such a difference between, you know, I've directed and acted in film. And I've directed and acted on stage. And there's such a difference in the way that you relate to each other as actors on stage versus on film and the way that that family grows as opposed to a film family. And it was nice to see all the artists like trying to find some way in the desperation of COVID to keep that alive and to maintain that camaraderie. And a lot of I haven't done a lot of live theater in a while. The last thing I did, I directed, I'll never make this mistake again. I directed and starred in a production of God of Carnage. Which is a very dialogue heavy show where it's like a lot of eating. And I would get the shakes every night because I'm like, you know, my cat played Michael, so I'm pounding rum, which is actually like watered down apple juice, but I would go through like 2 gallons of it a night. And I'd come off like this.
Oh God.
And then eating like, you know, clafouti, which is a fucking cake made out of like pear. Like it's just loaded
I
with
love
sugar.
a clafouti, but
It's delicious. My fiance made them for the show. They were amazing. So we were like eating straight up clafouti. But so a lot of the people I was doing these readings with are people I haven't been on stage with in a long time, or some I haven't even talked to in a long time. There was one highlight. I did a reading of Anchorman.
Nice.
Oh, that's fun.
With a group of people that are in, some of them work for like what used to be Allegro Playhouse, some like the Barn and the Women's Theater of New Jersey, and some of these guys.
Lillian, Allegro is who I did that batshit production of Cabaret with.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if Allegro is still a thing, but when they were, very nice people, but
nice folks. But I did dodgy shit with them.
What was nice about it? So I was playing Champ as the character that Dave Keckner played, the guy with the big, you know, the 10-gallon hat. It was whammy like that guy.
Yeah.
I drank 7 glasses of scotch during the course of doing this thing because it was like, who gives a shit? Number one, and number two, it's period. You know.
That's so funny.
It's period accurate. Like, you know, it's the 70s. Everyone's drinking scotch in a newsroom. So I got shit-faced during the course of that, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, otherwise, like the Zoom reading stuff, I was trying to, I'm finishing up a TV pilot right now that I was trying to do a Zoom reading for. And because it's like Sesame Street crosses with like Veep. is kind of the so it's if I can like plug this for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
The idea, it's called Aardvark Nation. It's about, because I've worked so much in children's theater, like I know what children's theater actors can be like. So it's this idea that this beloved television character named Andy the Aardvark is getting his first arena show. So it's like Sesame Street Live, right? And it's like the first that this company is putting up this arena show. So the show idea revolves around the crew and the executives, just everybody, like CEO down to like, the PA, who all has to kind of congeal to make this show happen. And it's written in a very Veepish style, so it's very nasty. It's completely not politically correct at all. They say a lot of things that you're not supposed to say, because they're terrible people, and the joke is on them. It's not, and it's just something that Armando Iannucci, who created Veep, does so well, is allow for a space to say like the worst things you've ever heard somebody say, and the joke is on the person saying them.
Oh yeah,
right.
You're using punching down language to punch down on the person who's using the language.
Yes.
And that's such a hard line to toe. Like it's really hard to do that and still create protagonists who do that, who you do sympathize with in these moments. And I guess that's just the genius of Julia Louis-Dreyfus, to be able to be at once a sympathetic character and also the worst human being that's ever existed. So I was trying to put together a Zoom reading for this, and I realized like so much of this is about timing. So much of comedy is about timing that it just won't work. Like I have to get people in a room together to do this. Otherwise you end up with delays, jokes fall flat. Like it's going to sound like shit, and then I'm going to think that it's shit.
Yeah.
And it won't go anywhere. So I'm glad that we're coming back to a place where we can start like seeing each other in person.
Hell yeah. Well, keep me updated for sure. Sure. And Thespians, I'll put Greg's contact info in the show notes so you can follow him. And look at his photography. His photography is so beautiful. And this has been an utter delight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Yes,
it's nice walking down this memory lane of like, drug paraphernalia and old beer bottles in my brain. Like
yes. Yes. All right, listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been Greg Jolley. I'm Jen Ponton.
I'm Lillian Bustle.
And until next time, listen up, you little shits.
You car wash attendants.
Yes.
You wearing a hairnet forever, little fuckers.
Oh, so good. That was great.